Great to be here. I'll just give a bit of a heads up to start. I'm not here as a professional designer or builder or municipal official or executive or architect. I'm just here as an ordinary, everyday neighbor, a citizen, a resident. And so it's going to be a grassroots, boots on the ground kind of perspective. And I want to share with you just a couple of our projects that have helped us as neighbors move towards becoming a vibrant, abundant, healthy, safe, inclusive, and connected neighborhood. So it all started for us. Oh, that's the wrong button. Oh. This green one? There we go. Okay, thank you. So it started for us about 13 years ago when we received a grant from the city and were invited to participate in the Jim Deere's workshop. We formed a neighborhood engagement team, a NET, as we call it, and began to scheme and dream about everything from block parties to community potlucks to good neighbor projects, and they were all intended to catalyze this neighborhood of care and well-being for everyone. The discussion also led us to talk about some of the neighborhood concerns we had, such as this empty lot. It's at the entrance of our community, and it was known as the eyesore. It collected garbage and actually a lot of unhealthy behaviors. We had all kinds of grand ideas back then, from an art display to a garden labyrinth to a farmer's market. But first we had to figure out who owned it and who we had to talk to get that fence down and begin to work on it. It turned out that from the city's perspective, it was a very difficult place to do anything with because it was designated as a brownfield. About 30 years ago, it had a gas station on it. But once we discovered that we could talk to the owner, SO Limited, it turned out that they were pretty easy to deal with, actually. And after a little bit of back and forth, they gave us a lease for a very reasonable price. I paid for the first 5 years myself $1 a year. Big spender I am, I tell you. Our many ideas were simplified and amalgamated into creating a neighborhood bumping space where any and all could hang out, meet one another and connect, enjoy a healthy snack from our adjacent Sweet Pea Vegan Cafe, and where community events could take place. The lesson here was keep it simple. Garage sales and other fundraising endeavors brought in donations from many neighbors and those close by. Neighbors also contributed rocks and perennials, and most of our trees and shrubs came from the generosity of Canadian Tire Gardening Center. You have to go in the fall, though, to get those. The city of Edmonton also helped with benches and a picnic table. And all the hard labor was done and continues to be done by neighbors. Well, almost all of it. After many attempts with 2 or 3 neighbors jumping on a spade together to break the surface of this hard ground, we had to bring in a 16-inch auger on a bobcat to drill holes for the trees and the shrubs. And this friend of a neighbor also positioned all of the 100 donated boulders around the site to prevent vehicle traffic and to protect SO's monitoring wells. So many neighbors contributed their energy and their skills, shared their gifts, their experiences, their interests, and who knew that we actually had a master composter in the neighborhood who came out to set that up for us. And all of those volunteer hours spent together provided a wonderful opportunity for neighbors to meet, many for the first time, and to get to know one another. But perhaps the most important story of this project is that of Marie and Doug. They and their little construction company decided to research, plan, and install a gazebo on the site for the neighbors. Sadly, Doug, after a courageous battle with cancer, passed away before the project was completed. For this reason, the gazebo is dedicated to him, and we have a rock memorial there for him. But his memory lives on and is celebrated each time we enjoy it. And I also believe that it is because of that shared and treasured community story that our gazebo has never been vandalized, and it's respected and maintained voluntarily by the neighborhood. We had a neighbor go by last year and noticed that it needed to be stained again, and he just took the initiative and did the whole thing on his own. So Gazebo Park has been the site for many neighborhood events, the Fall Festival and other gathering opportunities. In fact, neighbors of all ages, including the kids and tweens from across the street school and our seniors who are kitty corner and are residents there, come and hang out and enjoy the park. The second project I'd like to talk with you about focuses on nurturing social connections, or as our city now calls it, ACE, Abundant Community Edmonton, which is based on the work of ABC gurus, as I call them, John McKnight and Peter Block. Laurier Heights has participated in this now citywide movement since it was being conceived and piloted back in 2014. And I think there are about 150 Edmonton neighborhoods who are now involved in ACE. ACE is a grassroots initiative fostering neighbor-to-neighbor relationships. The goal, to cultivate a culture of care and connection, increase the sense of belonging and inclusion, and ultimately create a healthier and more livable city, one block at a time. Thus, the cornerstone of ACE is its block connectors. Block connectors are neighbors who help facilitate connections on their own block and throughout the neighborhood, in their townhouse complex, on their apartment floor. They serve as the point person, the party person, and the listener. And through their efforts, neighbors shift from being strangers to acquaintances into relationships. And there are so many benefits to that. People feel more safe and secure. They take care of one another. The village raises the child. And three other things make this happen: inclusive hospitality, the discovery and sharing of our gifts, and through that, the bringing together of those gifts, those interests, those passions, those skills into a wide variety of groups, or as the book calls them, associations. It often begins with block parties, getting neighbors together to have and share food and fun. And out of that, they discover that they actually have lots of things in common and much to share and very little to fear in one another. Coming together gives us the opportunity to initiate some fun and healthy community activities, like participating in a Edmonton City Winterscapes. This is a Winter City contest. We had a giant dragon and an igloo, which actually turned out to be a fundraiser for the MS Society. The neighbors actually slept in it one night, which is quite something in Edmonton winter. The coming together also created a sled shed because we have a beautiful toboggan hill in the neighborhood, but not everyone has a toboggan. So a few neighbors built this, and other neighbors donated toboggans, and now when you walk by in the winter, you can grab a sled and take a run, which we've had seniors and others do quite well, actually sometimes to the fear and trepidation of those watching, because 77-year-olds going down a toboggan hill, well, you never know what might happen. Through the block connectors, we also learned that many residents were interested in playing pickleball. So we received a grant for that and created 5 courts on our hockey rink, got all the equipment for anyone and everyone to participate. And now we have young teens, actually we had 8 and 9-year-olds the other day, up to, I think the oldest is 88, playing pickleball day and night there. In addition, we have a seniors art group that meets every Monday and Thursday afternoon at the hall to paint and to drink tea. And a Harvest Fall Festival and other activities of interest and importance to the neighbors, such as the Truth and Reconciliation Day gathering. Behind these initiatives is our Community League Board, made up of a number of volunteer teams, including our civics team, and that's led by a senior planner and Laurier resident. The civics team continues to seek to advocate for development that recognize the healthy community guidelines that we're talking about today. And together we're cultivating a neighborhood and neighborliness that's vibrant and healthy for all. The third project I want to briefly share with you grew, no pun intended, out of our Talking Gardens group, which was formed as we discovered through our block connecting that there were lots of gardeners in the community. And it began with a Dragon's Den pitch. And that was with the city. They invited neighborhoods to make suggestions for what they'd like to do in their neighborhoods and do a literal Dragon's Den pitch for their staff. And this is our pitch. Imagine children picking apples and enjoying them on their way to the school. Imagine a senior resident stopping to munch Hascaps or Saskatoons while having a conversation with a young parent and her toddlers doing the same. Imagine a community harvest fair where we actually harvest together, all ages, abilities, ethnicities, working, learning, eating together, making apple butter, baking pies, canning and juicing rhubarb and strawberries, the younger and newer alongside the older, more experienced, who pass on their knowledge and skills, and all feel valued and connected. The results? More neighbors understand the benefits of permaculture and biodiversity. More neighbors adopt more sustainable living habits, and we fostered a greater sense of place and connection, and we have an abundance of nutritious food for the neighborhood, with enough left over to distribute to those who struggle for food security. Food and shelter for birds and insects, butterflies and bees, pollinators, and a few animals too, with no waste. For a forest has no waste. And once established, a forest needs no mowing, weeding, mulching, digging required, nor does it need pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, or watering. For a forest is self-sustaining, restorative, regenerative, and in this case, deliciously edible. A perennial garden, creator's way with over 460 million years of experience. Forests have supported, fed, clothed, and sheltered humanity for 95% of its existence, and they're all natural. With a place and a project like this, neighbors were inspired, equipped, and engaged to get going. Our growing Talking Gardens group discovered that we actually had an orchard farmer connected to the neighborhood, a master permaculturalist, and a young planner too. And that we had a community full of people who've shown their desire and their willingness to participate as citizens, to take ownership and responsibility for making our neighborhood an even better place to live for all. As author John McKnight puts it, families and neighborhoods become abundant and functional again when they invest enough in each other. That gifts, association, and hospitality become commonplace in the collective. This invisible structure of community properties is created when citizens come together to produce something. We were becoming a neighborhood ready, willing, and able to make this dream a reality. And as we began to plan and work together, so our pitch went, we believed that we would seed a wonderful, fruitful forest to make a more connected, healthy, environmentally conscious, educated, and sustainable neighborhood, eager to share her gifts and abundance with others. By the way, we won the Dragon's Den votes and got the grant. And so the work began. And again, neighbors got to work. And the University of Alberta Housing for Health Community Project Initiative came alongside. Things kicked off with an online workshop, because we were in COVID at that time. And the team at H4H guided Laurier residents through a variety of conversations, brainstorming sessions to produce ideas on how to make the food forest the best it could be with and for the whole community. And these ideas included things like seating areas, specific plant varieties, and educational materials that help the food forest grow literally and communally. Neighbors got to work not only physically, but with planning and creating events to move the project forward. We held 3 events that summer. The first was a pollinator party. The second was all about permaculture, and those who wanted to got to take home a worm farm. And the third was about sharing our produce and learning, and that was what we called Midsummer Harvest Fest. For 6 years now, right through COVID, neighbors have been nurturing and enjoying our vibrant food forest. It's still in its infancy. We're connecting, we're experimenting, we're sharing, we're growing, and even new neighbors are finding a place to connect and participate here. Natalia, a recent immigrant who doesn't speak English at all, joined in. She came as a grandmother with her son, and at that little get-together, sitting or working in the garden next to a neighbor who had just lost her husband, an 80-year-old widow, they began making hand signals, translating to each other, and now they meet in the garden regularly, and they call themselves best friends. What have we been learning and affirming through this? That every neighbor has gifts to share, and that those will contribute to the whole. That we are all citizens with ownership and responsibility for our community's well-being. That nurturing neighborliness and abundant community is fun and life-giving. That our personal health and well-being are inextricably linked to the health and well-being of our community. That imagining together is really the first step. That every neighbor needs to be welcomed and included. And that to persevere is really important. Sometimes it's also easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And if one way doesn't work, partner, plan, try another way. To conclude, through these and other neighborhood projects, we're nurturing an abundant community that promotes and facilitates physical activity, social connections, and a healthy food access for one and for all. Thank you for being here and for your commitment to cities that are fit and healthy, and for listening to our story.
Thank you, Dr. Wilk. Very inspiring. Okay, any burning questions, either online or in the room? There we go. Thank you so much. One question. Can we have a microphone? Perfect. Right here.
Thank you very much for sharing your stories in your community. This is just a personal question I have. Moving into a brand new neighborhood and seeing all these exciting things that can happen, what do you recommend to start? And like, how do you start, right? When you have got new homes and new homes are being built, and so it's a brand new community, and lots of people are living with dirt in their yard right now, and so it's an exciting time to kind of see what the possibilities are.
Get your neighbors together, to put it simply. We did like just meet and greet on the driveway, and had a coffee pot out or lemonade or something like that, and kind of go around and knock on the doors and say, hey, let's meet one another. Some neighborhoods did a front room pizza party if it was in the winter. Just try and get people together and talking. What do you think would make our neighborhood a better place? What do you enjoy doing? And if you have 2 or 3 households who are connecting and doing that and willing to plan a block party, then you'll get it going, sharing ideas and so on.
Thank you.
Any other burning questions?
I have a question. Thank you so much for sharing us with your success stories. I'm living in one of your neighboring league in Linwood community I'm living. I'm just wondering, is this success story has been shared with other leagues? But since this story it seems to me very unknown to me, since I've been living there in that community for 3 years, and I have, or I didn't have any experience of this kind of things like welcoming neighbors, doing this kind of group activities, harvesting, all kind of things. So it seems to me like kind of DreamWorks. Maybe I missed all of them, or I'm not being connected. So just wondering, is all these success stories are shared or not? Thank you.
I don't think they're shared enough. Through Community League, Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues, I think some of the stories are being told, and we're not the only neighborhood doing some creative activities like this. I have visited some other neighborhoods, such as Rio Terrace, which is also kind of neighborhood to you. And I'm not sure if Linwood has taken on Abundant Community. I've never seen them at any of those meetings, gatherings, learning communities. So I would encourage you to talk to your community league and move it forward. And there might even be some people from Abundant Community and Community League, Edmonton Federation here right now who heard all that and are going to come talk to you real quick.
Great question.